There we go. Hey, so welcome back to Elden Ring Let's Play. This episode and the next three are going to be a little different because I forgot to record microphone audio on the initial playthrough. So this is technically editor TREXplode, not live TREXplode. So the gimmick for this episode that you're currently watching was I had a timer set for 25 minutes, and I wanted to see if I could get to Melania in that time. Spoiler, I don't, but I probably could if I did a better job. I think I might edit this in post just to get through some of the boring parts. Maybe I'll cut this down and tack some of the next episode on. Because as you can see, I'm doing a lot of talking here. This is just me going over the microphone thing. Not the microphone. I didn't even know the microphone was not working. Like, legit. I finished recording these 4 episodes. I opened them. I finished recording these episodes. I went to take a break and drink some water, eat some lunch. All that stuff. And when I came back to start editing them, frame skip right there, that's not fun. When I came back to start editing them, I looked and the microphone track was just completely silent. And that's because, for whatever reason, my recording software decided to change which microphone was set as the default. So basically the way I have it set up is I have a Blue Yeti stereo microphone, and that's my primary mic. It's also my better mic. And then I have a headset mic that is attached to my headphones. And the headset mic is bad, so I thought I had all of my audio programs set to use the Yeti mic as the default. Clearly that's not the case, because I had to, at least I thought that was the way. I guess there must have been an update and that reset all the settings, which sucks, because it means I have to spend twice as much time on each of these episodes now. Yeah, so basically I'm just getting back to the gameplay a bit. I'm basically just trying to get through these 2 sections of the game, the snowfield and the Halig tree, as quickly as possible, because all of these enemies, even for my character who has end game level stats and end game equipment, are really tough. Like, even some of the weaker ones can still 3-shot a character with 60 vigor, which, like, look at how much damage that freaking lightning bolt did to me. That almost killed my character, and my character has 56 vigor at this point, which is like end game level health. That, like, I've hit the second soft calf with that amount of vigor, and it still almost killed me in one go. And that wasn't even like a boss or anything. It was just a static instance of an enemy that will attack you when you go by it. So right now I'm just trying to get to the map so I can more easily go. Oh, and this is me. So this is, I know I said try to get through as many things as possible in 25 minutes, but that little slight spot is really weird. I think that's like a lighting glitch or whatever, or maybe it's part of a quest line. I don't know what it is. Point is, it's weird that it stands out like that, and there's not like an item or a grace or anything that you can pick up there. Anyway, I grabbed the map just so I can have a better understanding of my surroundings, and then I ride over to the town. Now, I could have just gone straight into the puzzle here, but I wanted a fail-safe in case I died in the meantime, so I ride around a bit trying to find the site of grace. Because apparently I didn't remember quite where it was, which is dumb. It's right inside the town. Like, if I had actually gone into the town instead of trying to circle around the outside, I would have found it easily. But instead, I just waste time scampering around the outside like a dumbass. Oh, this is gonna be real obnoxious. I'm not even 5 minutes in, and my throat's already getting dry. I should have gotten some water. Anyway, the real sucky part about the audio for my microphone not working is not this episode or the next episode, but the one after. Has me doing one of my favorite boss fights. And granted, I don't talk during that boss fight very much. Like, I'm silent for most of it because I really like that boss fight and I just wanted to enjoy it and I wanted to do my best. But my reaction when I win is, I think, really fun because I was very exhilarated. I'm just lucky I caught this early because this is like right after I did the initial recording for these episodes. But now I have to go. So basically the puzzle for this area is you have to go around and you have to light through 3 sconces. But the obnoxious part is that there are, aside from it being an endgame level area with enemies that deal way too much damage, there's also these 2 assassins who normally would be invisible, but I have a weapon called the Sentry's Torch, which renders them visible. The downside, of course, is that I have to have the torch in an active slot, which means I can't use like a shield or spells or anything. So I have to just rely on the rapier, which is fine. It does decent damage. The enemy's already at half health, but I basically can't use half of my kit because I have to keep this torch equipped. Because otherwise, what would end up happening is that the enemy would be invisible and they would just repeatedly do their grab attack, and which, you know, wouldn't one-shot me, but it would do an absurd amount of damage. And what I actually didn't know is that there are actually 2 invisible assassins. I was under the impression that there was only 1 invisible assassin at this point in the game. There's 2. Thankfully, due to RNG, I don't really have to deal with the second one. But that's beside the point. So yeah, the puzzle in this section of the game is I have to, fall off the roof like a dumbass. But you have to go around, light these sconces. And once you light all 4 of them, you get teleported out of this area where all these enemies can kill you and stuff. And you gain access to the Halig Tree, which is like the post-game area. It is the post-game area. The snowfield that we're in currently is a post-game area, but the Halig Tree is the post-game area. Like, it is significantly harder than the rest of the game, which makes sense because it's the home of the hardest boss, which is where this playthrough will be ending, which is why I wanted to try and time myself to try and get there in under 25 minutes. But as you can see with all the damage I'm taking and all the times I fall off the edge of the roof and all of the mistakes I made, that's not really viable. I legit get 90% of the way to Melania's boss fight, and then the timer goes off. And I'm just like, well, timer went off. Time to end the episode. Which, it's fine. It's 25 minutes. That's a decent length of episode. I've noticed that. Sidebar, since, you can kind of just get the picture for yourself. I don't really have to talk about it much in post. Like, I've noticed that a lot of the time my episodes that are around 25 minutes tend to perform better, at least in terms of views, than the ones that are, longer, like, or shorter even, which I guess is just how the algorithm look, see how much damage I took, right? All right. But yeah, so that was the other reasoning, is I wanted to see if I could get there in a reasonable amount of time, and I wanted to see if I could get there in the time it took to record a well-performing episode. And now that they're off the roof, they're not really a big issue. That was the second most obnoxious encounter in this area. First was the assassin, and the second was these archers, which thankfully you don't really have to deal with after you get this sconce. Yeah, so there's the one on the ground, there's the other one in the tower, there's this one, and then the last one, which I had to think about for a second because I remember there being items towards the other rooftop, is at the other tower at the other end of town, which is guarded by the second invisible assassin, which we'll be seeing shortly. I'm not sure why I thought I had to go up on these roof here. It's probably because I just did it in my previous playthroughs. Oh, it's because of this girl. Right. Yeah, you don't even have to really kill the archers. If you just knock them out of position, they won't move because they don't have legs. Not that it was really much of a concern anyway, because, you know... Oh, yeah. So I did not know that this was a second enemy. I just knew that this was a second possible location to encounter the assassin, which is why I re-equipped the torch. And you'll see what I mean when I said earlier about getting good at RNG. For whatever reason, this one liked jumping back a lot. So what ends up happening is we do this little song and dance, and then she just jumps back 50 feet, and I'm like, okay, cool. Well, they only have one attack, and they don't like to spam it. That can hit me, so I'll just climb the ladder. Because these enemies can't climb ladders. So I just tank this hit here, and climb the ladder, and light the sconce, and the puzzle area is over. Because as soon as you light the fourth one, you just get teleported out. Well, it's not immediate, but you know. You look, see, bada bing, bada boom. Outside, got everything equipped. Now I don't have to deal with the awful torch. Well, the torch isn't awful. It's very useful, but like I said, it hampers your ability. And granted, you would have encountered an invisible assassin earlier in the playthrough if you'd spent all the time exploring, but I knew where I needed to go for most of the items for this character, so I didn't bother doing that. And now we come to the real run killing part of this, because I get like most of the way to the next bonfire. Not bonfire. This is the real issue with Elden Ring, is that you get so used to using Dark Souls terminology that it's like, I'm sure if you played Bloodborne after you played Dark Souls, you call it the Blood Echoes souls, because you know that's what they are. That's what they are functionally. And that's what runes are in this game, is that they're just souls. Like, that's actually what they are, even in lore. But anyway, yeah. So I run past all of these projectile enemies, and I run past the ants, which are obnoxious. And I just spend too much time looking at the ground when I should have been paying attention to Mr. Bubble Blower up there. Because I get hit by his bubbles, which takes a chunk off my health. And instead of healing, I just die. So yeah, that was the real 25-minute kill. I feel like if I hadn't died there, I probably would have been able to get to Melania before the timer went off. Even if it was only an extra 30 seconds. The point is, I definitely could have made it to Melania in 25 minutes, but I didn't because I suck. I don't suck. I'm very good at these games. At least compared to the average gamer. I'm sure there are plenty of people who are just like, oh, he uses summons for 90% of his fights. Or he relies on the barricade shield strat. And it's like, yeah, I do, but, you know, I mentioned this in another one of these episodes where you can't hear me talking because the microphone is recorded. But if the game did not intend for you to use these tools, they would not be in the game. Like, if the game did not intend for people to summon other players to help them, or intend for them to summon the spirit ashes to help in boss fights, those things would not be in the game. And as you can see here, I rectify my previous mistake, and I'm actually looking at the projectiles instead of the ground like a dumbass. So I'm actually able to avoid all of the damage. I still get hit with Scarlet Rot, but that's whatever. Right? I do make the mistake of not equipping the spell, but I still have all of my healing items, so it doesn't matter. This is me getting a little confused about the way forward. I do not jump like that looks like a survivable distance. It's not. That's why the ladder's here. And we get to the site of grace. And now this next section is fun because I just run through it. like this is one of the sections that has me convinced I could have done this in 25 minutes if I had actually done it seriously. You know, aside from the fact that I get hit here, is, you know, you just avoid getting hit by these guys. Like, they slow you down a bit, but as long as you don't take the hit from them, they're fine. And you can just jump across this section instead of taking the ladder. I actually don't know what the intended... Like, obviously, they intended for players to be able to jump through there, but because otherwise they wouldn't have put it close enough for you to do that. But I'm wondering what the intended route is if you don't jump, because I've never really taken the time to do it. Because, like, why would you? Jumping's easier. You grab this little checkpoint in case I die, which I don't, but I still waste time. Like, that's the thing, right? I definitely could have made it to Melania in 25 minutes, but I do so many little things that just waste, like, 10 to 20 seconds that I end up having to cut the episode off when I'm in the middle of a section that is, like, right at the end of the run. Yeah. So this is me going into one of the last difficult encounters before the boss of this area. I'm mainly just harassing these guys because I have the daggers equipped, which give me FP and health back. I don't know why the enemy missed. It's really funny that they did, but it doesn't make sense to me. Now, what I intended to do was kill this mage with sniper rounds, but as you can see, they have very high defenses for whatever. And the reason I wanted to kill him instead of just, like, baiting him back is because, you know, they're very... Now, if I hadn't wasted a couple shots firing into the ground here because I misjudged the distance, I probably could have killed him. But what ends up happening is, you know, I get hit by this blast because I didn't realize it explodes that much. And then I have to dance around with these zombies and this mage in this room for a couple minutes before, you know, finally realizing that I'm just wasting time. And I just run past them. Like, that's the thing a lot of people who are new to the Souls games don't realize, is that assuming you don't want the souls or you need the resources, you can, in fact, just run past 95% of the enemies. Yeah, like, this is really a low point here. If I hadn't mashed out of that grab, I probably would have died there. But yeah, see, I realize I just have I have the two of them in this enclosed space. They're not able to move fast enough to catch me, so I just cut to the chase and run away. Unlock the shortcut back to the first checkpoint in this area. The boss is right through that gate. Thankfully, I one-shot it, which I don't know why I'm saying thankfully. It's not like it's a hard boss. It's not something I haven't fought before, especially with this character. That's one of the interesting things about Elden Ring. A lot of people say it's a weak point that they reuse a lot of bosses and a lot of boss archetypes, but I think the Tree Sentinel archetype is the exception, because every encounter iterates on the previous one. So, you know, you first encounter the Tree Sentinel outside the first area of the game, and it's hard because, you know, that's the first legitimate enemy you have to fight. Most people waste a lot of time. This is me sending the elevator back up in case I die, because I fully acknowledge that I'm in a part of the game where it's very easy for me to die even if I'm good. But yeah, so a lot of people say it's lazy design to reuse enemies and stuff. I think the Tree Sentinel archetype is an okay use of that, because each version of it iterates on it. So you have the first version, which is the default Tree Sentinel, and then you have Loretta here, which I think is technically the second version you can encounter. And it's like, oh, so now you have to deal with a moveset that's more oriented around magic and projectiles, but the rest of it is still the same. Like, she's still using most of the same moves. Still has most of the same weaknesses. And you know, obviously she's the boss of an area, and that's and then you encounter the Draconic Tree Sentinel, which more accurately builds on the Tree Sentinel archetype by using more of its moveset, but it also utilizes lightning, so it still has a different moveset, and then it also has a more clearly defined second phase. And then you have the final version of Loretta here, where it's the same as Loretta, but she has a special powered up state, and she also gets access to this move. And I think she uses her lance more often than she would in the previous fights, which I think is why it's okay that she... And that was a misinput by me. I had my finger on the trigger instead of the bumper. But yeah, I think... So, don't get me wrong. I fully understand where people are coming from when they say that reusing boss and enemy designs is lazy. But video games are hard, and Elden Ring is a massive game. Like, in terms of... Like, just the sheer amount of like, I get that they reuse the same zombie enemy like 50 times in 50 different locations, probably more, but they still have a lot of enemy variation. There are probably well over 100 different enemies with unique movesets, which is a lot for a game in general, right? And I get that it's like, oh, it's a AAA game. They can do better than that. And it's like, yeah, but we still... they're still adding new stuff. There's DLC coming out that we don't have a definitive date for. Like, here's the thing, right? When I beat Millennia, this playthrough is done. But when the DLC comes out, I'm going to go back through and do the DLC, because why wouldn't I, right? Like, I love this game. The Souls games are weirdly addicting, because them and fighting games are like the two games that I come back to and play over and over again. I have, like, on my Steam profile, I think Dark Souls 3 by itself is like my second most played game, and I never installed mods for it. And Elden Ring, especially since it's already a much bigger game than Dark Souls 3, like, shot up in playment rates. These are basically my comfort games. And I think that comes through because, you know, obviously this isn't my first playthrough. This is technically my 5th character. But it's very clear, you know, just from how quickly I'm able to go through and how confidently I'm able to just, like, yeah, I can just ignore these enemies. It's clear that, you know, I spend a lot of time playing these games, and I wouldn't do that if I didn't enjoy them. And granted, Dark Souls 3 holds a much better space in my heart compared to Elden Ring, because while I do think Elden Ring is the better game, Dark Souls 3 was a much better experience for me because I played that with my friends. Because here's the thing, right? I realize that they released a seamless co-op mod for this, but I feel like the multiplayer aspect of Elden Ring is significantly weaker than previous Souls games. Because the way previous Souls games, but they didn't update it from previous Souls games. This section is obnoxious. You got ballistas, and then you also have a crap ton of night enemies, and then also a tree spirit. But, you know, thankfully I'm able to just avoid and go through them all. But yeah, the multiplayer element of Elden Ring is significantly weaker than that of the previous games, due to it being an open world, right? You'd think with an open world that you'd just be able to, you know, you think seamless co-op would be the default. And I kind of get, from a programmatic perspective, why they wouldn't let you use torrent. But I feel like in an open world game, you can't do that. You can't limit your players because of something like that. And it's clear that they didn't have to, because Seamless Multiplayer is a mod that exists. Like, you can... It was entirely programmatically possible for them to do multiplayer with torrent, and for them to allow players to, you know, persist after defeating bosses. And I realize that modding a game is very different from making a game, but it feels like those were unnecessary limitations left on out of, I guess, reverence for the previous years. Because in previous games, you know, it was divided cleanly into sections. Once you got to the end of the section, you wouldn't need help to traverse through that anymore, because you got through that section. You can go to the next section, or you can go back and help your friend get through the section. There wasn't a reason to go through. But because Elden Ring is an open world, you're looping back on it a lot more, and you're going through sections, and it's a lot more expansive, and it just doesn't work for multiplayer in the same way. And in Dark Souls 3, my friends and I, the reason it was my most played game for the longest time is because of it was a social experience. Like, I spent so much time co-oping and fighting and invading in that game because it was fun and it was a thing to do with my friends. Anyway, we're coming up on the end of this recording session. So, yeah, like, right here you'll notice I'll just suddenly stop, and that's because the timer I had set was going off. So yeah, you know, I'll continue this next episode. Hopefully the mics will be fixed. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. See you next time. Bye.